like to welcome you guys to our country. What we call in Nyikina is Burula. Mabo Ngimbi, Ngaji Nilawal, Richard Rose. Ngaji Nyikina Wampa, Nyikina Baringanda. Nyikina Buru Yijira, Yarga Galaya Mabo Jua, Burula, Yajungana, Buru Burula. Nyikina Buru Burula, Yajarangana Buru, Walajara. Nyinga Aramariñaru, Nyikina Buru, Yajaranganga Yinamu Bolayan. Abu Ngayo, Yayu Jija Gala, Korea, Kalaya. Nyikina people say, this is our country. We welcome you to our country. We ask you to respect our place. And when you leave this country, we hope you go with a good feeling from me and my old people that you travel back safely. Kalaya.
My Aboriginal family has stories going back thousands of years. And this last Idla, which is wet season in Womadjeri, we had no stories to prepare us for what was going to happen. We've never seen a wave of water come over land the way it did. It moved so differently. It was like rips in the ocean and also formed a massive inland sea.
We had to evacuate people quick because the water was rising very fast, and as they were in the canoe, we didn't have much space to paddle or steer the canoe, so we had to jump into the water, and as he pulled from the front, I pushed from behind.
36 horas depois de tragédia, chegou aqui o corpo de bombeiro estadual, um grupo do Exército, né? A nossa ação por nós mesmos foi que fez a diferença. Senão, a gente teve aqui 64 mortes, com certeza morreria para mais de 100, ou bem mais, se não fosse essa nossa ação.
No meio de tanta tristeza, de tanta dor, de tanto sofrimento, tinha momentos de felicidade, tinha momentos de esperança. Muitos momentos de esperança. Quando você via todo mundo, toda a comunidade mobilizada em ajudar uns aos outros.
The one way I processed all the energy from all the flood was I made them back. The top, the purple, these sections here. Oh, this is my roof. This is stand and my shed. This is the big part. I love that.
Wow.
The brown is where it comes up when it does flood normally. But there's all this yellow is other water that has never come this way before.
Yeah, that period has definitely, affected my mental health. I've never felt the same.
The way government processes are currently set up, they're not wired for any mental health well-being. These processes really need to be improved as the world experiences more extreme weather events. A lot more of us are going to be impacted by them and become climate change refugees.
I was speaking to people around my age, in their 20s, and they're like, yeah, Manga, people were saying that you could see the Goolarri up at the river, and the Goolarri is the rainbow serpent, So they were saying that this flood was so bad, this water bubble was so bad because people have angered the rainbow serpent. And that was people my age. And then I remember I was speaking to a grandmother of mine, so an elder, and she's like, just fucking climate change. Places like Fitzroy and then places like the Torres Strait as well and the Pacific Islands, we're going to be seeing, the effects first. And, we already have, I think, that flood was a climate change flood.
E por que está acontecendo isso? Porque próprio o homem branco está destruindo a própria terra. A cachoeira, ela traz cura também. Só que com a poluição da água é bem difícil para a mãe natureza nos curar. E essas construções de barragem também.
There's always a threat of water still being extracted. There's also mining that threaten our country. It always seems to be, coincidentally that most of our sacred areas seem to be rich in some sort of mineral or natural gas, and it's like why do you want to go here? Like, it's our way of life from all these years that kept the country balanced.
Muitas pessoas têm que saber, né? Para poder saber viver e saber o que tem que fazer, né? E eu fico muito feliz, né, de estar podendo falar com vocês.
Thank you for that conversation. It's so much easier to talk to people who have that same understanding. It's very uplifting to be able to connect that way, like across oceans and countries. It's amazing. Thank you.
We acknowledge that we're on the wonderful lands of the Nyikina people. Thank you very much for hosting us and having us here on this wonderful saltwater and freshwater country that beautiful intersection meets. And thank you to Bernie and Natalie Davis for this film highlighting climate change and the very real effects that we're seeing here in our part of the world and in other parts of the world as well. It's a really important topic and conversation to have, and showcasing it in a really nice way through people's stories and sadly personal tragedy. So I'd like to thank them for that. Yeah, so good morning everyone, my name is Manmia. I'm a Burumba language speaking Milluindi clan woman, but I'm from Fitzroy Crossing and I have connections to all the language groups in the center of the Kimberley, and the thing that connects us all is the Marawara River. So I can say I'm a Marawara person too. And yeah, so that's me. I feel like I'm also an artist, but I think even calling myself an artist was such a lucrative thing to start doing. But I feel like I just started creating because that was expression and freedom of expression. And I personally believe that all humans have creativity and are artists in our own way. It's just whether we can connect with ourselves properly so that we can have that expression as well. And I just think that is a really important part of the human experience. And today I'm with a wonderful panel of Blackfella artists, Kimberley Blackfella artists at that, with Eduardo, Dalia, and Albert. But could I please have you all introduce yourselves now? Starting with you.
All right. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Eduardo Maher, a Yawuru, Jabirr, Nyul Nyul Bardi indigenous person from up in I lived most all my life in Broome, mostly. Been across the Kimberley, though, a bit. Yeah, I guess I also get classified now as an artist. Most of my work in life has been in the environmental space, but there's been some shifts and change where, as just part of wanting to be wanting to be a part of that storytelling process, I ended up doing performances and things like that, and yeah, that kind of what brought me into the art space.
Thank you.
Ngaji Gurijan, Ngayon Alwal Dalia, Ngayon Awalan Yarangan Buru. My name's Dalia Pigram. I'm from Yawuru country, born and raised in Broome, but I also have Bardi connection from my mother's father's side, up the peninsula there, beautiful, beautiful country. Feeling honoured to be invited here to Nyikina country to speak with you all amongst some amazing people here. I'm co-artistic director of a company that's an intercultural Indigenous dance theatre company called Maragaku. We make large-scale works and we are dedicated to working together in intercultural processes to try and find ways to express our realities and our lived experiences in this world that we are living in.
Gonna mấy namba ambring ngay gala Bardi ambring ngay jibanan ngan gaju gala Bardi and Kimberley Boer. Good morning, everyone. My name's Albert Wiggan. I'm from the Bardi tribe, which is north of Broome, One Arm Point, Signet Bay area. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and yeah, happy to share and listen to stories about, you know, all the work that is done through the arts and creative space in the Kimberleys and how we, and I'm looking forward to yeah, creating a relationship with everyone here and hopefully creating some sort of momentum moving into the future, you know, and we can all sort of start this journey where we can, you know, obviously create great initiatives in the region through arts, which has been working a long time. And yeah, I think Gwen has been a big testament to the arts scene in the region for a very, very long time, whether it's Broome, Derby and beyond. And it's incredible that we still have these souls a part of this journey. And, you know, we're that new generation of blood and we're that new generation of passion that are going to continue that journey, you know, but it's important that we use our ideas and share some of our ideas in, yeah, keeping those relationships strong. So I'm glad to be here and thank you guys.
Thank you so much. And if I could just ask each of you, how is climate change affecting your own communities? Eduardo?
Well, I'd say climate change. I think it's pretty evident that it does occur in the Kimberley, and it is an ongoing issue. And it comes to even the simplest things like a rain that occurs in May, just as a random occurrence, and that simple rain greens the grass and the trees just a little bit longer, and that little bit of longer green vegetation all of a sudden means that poor people working on country can't burn at the specific time when they're supposed to, and that much later burn means that when it does get to the hotter seasons and the hot fires are going to get more intense because there's still so much vast vegetation, and all that's just a byproduct of that increase in rain cycle. So we can see these small changes that are happening in the environment that just completely offset our communities already. That's being shown.
Thank you. Darling?
I think the effects of climate change can't be ignored anymore. People in our communities, whether arts community, are fueled with things to drive the art they make, but also within our own personal communities, it can be devastating, the things that we're witnessing, not just on a level of what the impacts on country, but on people. On the people that are dealing with these things on the ground, watching the river change so much must be such a big impact for those old people and those young people that experience that. And, you know, while living in Broome, there are other effects of what climate change brings, industry and consumerism and all these things that affect us on a day-to-day scale that impact the drive that you have for the types of art that you're going to make in my community, but also the complexities of having blunt instruments, whether it's native title or whether it's these things that you cannot stop particular things from progressing that then come back at you. And, you know, for a lot of Aboriginal people, we understand country is boss. It will show us. It will come and reset and balance itself. And we are just one little piece in the bigger puzzle.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, it's weird because I guess the narrative when it comes to climate change is always negative one. People are worried. It's sort of fear-based. People come from a sort of a fear-based perspective when they look at climate change. Whereas for me, I love climate change. I think it's just a reality call. It's nature. We all exist because of nature. We only exist because of nature. At one point in our existence, we lived with nature, we read nature, we were with nature, we were one with nature. That's our indigenous identity. Because we had experienced ice ages, we had experienced floods, we had experienced droughts. Our ancestors had experienced this stuff firsthand, and they witnessed the impacts, the raw, brutal impacts of climate change, at its worst. And they passed on knowledge, whether it was through song, whether it was through dance, whether it was through rock art, whether it was through artifacts and other mediums, all artistic expression, creative expression, ways to express their story. But they left a lot of knowledge behind as to how we as humanity, not as individual groups or as different language groups, but as we as human beings, how we needed to adjust who we were as people and our relationship with the natural world around us. And so in order for us to learn from them previous mistakes, we had to become a part of nature. We had to learn how to read nature, and we had to see ourselves in nature, not separate from it. And I think this is what we have in the Kimberleys. See, when you come to the Kimberleys, it's like you're just immersed in nature. You can't escape the flies. You can't escape the heat. You can't escape the mozzies. You can't. No matter how rich you are, you can't escape that stuff. It'll get you. And that's just nature in itself. That's just a wake-up call, a reminder. Who are we as human beings? And here we are in the Kimberleys, in one of the most untouched parts of the world, which still has nature living strong, and living vibrantly. And we are so privileged to be a part of that and to be a conduit of that. We become conduits of this landscape. We become messengers. We become that voice for country. And we invite the world to this place to understand what that really means. What is that relationship, having that deep connection, deep relationship with nature? What does that really mean? And I think, when it comes to climate change, I'm incredibly happy that Mother Nature finally has its place on the table. People are now starting to have the conversation around, how important the planet is and exactly where we sit in that whole balance. And when it comes to what Eddie was saying earlier around our knowledge, just around the seasons. We're already watching the changes. We're already seeing how seasons are changing and different patterns are changing. And we're looking at places like Fitzroy that are getting flooded. So the evidence is right there now. It's right in front of us. There's no more speculating. There's no more assuming anymore. It's right there. It's in front of us. We see sea tide levels rising. We see coastlines starting to become eroded. We're seeing remains from old people that were buried along our coastline. A lot of those remains are becoming exposed now because these increase in sea levels. And so, the evidence is there. The rangers, we don't give the rangers enough credit in regards to the amount of information that they collect and they understand about how our country is changing. And I think rather than prepare for the worst, I think we should just prepare.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, my next question, and I think you guys have all slightly touched on it, but if you could expand on it, is does or how does the climate crisis inform your work as artists?
I think in regards to the work that I've done, when you're going out to these communities and you're meeting the elders and the community members and even the kids in the classroom and the students, and you want to create these performances and you're being fed these stories that they want to be told, whether it's the traditional stories or if it's just some of the more culturally significant stories, the people out there are at the forefront seeing how the environment is changing, and they're also very reactive, and they want to be able to tell stories that are reflecting what's happening in the environment around them. So like while they want to tell these stories of what's happened in the past, then they also, you're building these new stories that are based around climate change, that are based around, like there has been stories being told, specifically a puppet performance where it was just about a skink that was discovered out in the desert called Jilji. And that skink, that story was then built around how that skink wants to protect its country and how the wildfires are coming out through the desert. And this is a story that the community and the ranges and the students built and made together and wanted it to be told. And every community is trying to have their story told out there, and it's all reactive based on what's happening in the communities. And the biggest changes that are happening is climate change.
I guess for Marageku and my own practice, we kind of try and keep a finger on the pulse of our community, but also when I say community, not just locally based, but nationally and then internationally, and how that can impact how telling our stories or embodying a community concerns through dance and theatre can reflect a truer picture of where we're at. As my pop Patrick Dodson would say when we consult with him in the beginnings of working on productions like this, he says, the role of an artist is such a crucial one because they can take some character and manifestation of these things that, give some imaginary and use our craft and our kind of superpower to reflect back what it is that's going on, because politicians and others can keep, barking at us, but or closing their ears to the issues we're trying to raise. But artists can actually make people feel and hear, we can hit the lian and we can move someone in a different way, even if they don't understand what's going on. So that's what I try to aim with the art that I make as responsible to carry story in this body, in this vessel. I try to give character and manifestation to the issues that my community or my world view is reflecting back to me, out to there. And then I guess to just touch on a show that we made back it premiered in 2015, Cut the Sky. There's a short reel, I think, that's part of the Arts Forum here for you to look at. It's called Cut the Sky, and it was something an elder that I remember back in one point in the early days would say if big rain was coming and people were out bush for business, to part the sky. And there were things that, we used to joke around to do, but could seriously, and I remember as a kid going, I know my old people can do that. They got the power to do these things. So we called the show Cut the Sky, and we made it kind of as, touching on climate change, what we were very, very interested in at the time, but it felt like the show was before its time. And so 10 years later, we've picked that show up again to keep telling it. And we're imagining it in other forms so that it has a legacy, because it's just as crucial now as it was 10 years ago, if not more. We're talking about the same things, and there's that embodiment through art, song, dance, theatre. These things have a way to, carry those messages in a strong way to multiple audiences.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I try and keep myself as busy as possible. Honestly, I do so many different things, work from TV to, all kinds of media, whether it's music, even, all forms of art. But then, I also, I'm working in the health sector, which keeps me grounded, and I'm, engaged with my community. And so I get to sort of ground myself that way, and, and a lot of humility, every day in regards to, but I've always been passionate about talking for country, I've always, being so privileged, being so lucky to grow up on Paradise, living and growing up in a place like One Point, like, and just that enriched cultural life, that just, really, I just felt like I was more rich than a millionaire. I just, money didn't mean anything. Not, I just felt like no money could buy what I had. There was not a dollar on the earth that could buy who I was and what I had. And so, I just thought it was incredibly important to continue. And my father was involved in making films in the past, so he kind of, in a way, I feel a sense of responsibility because it was kind of my dad and Malcolm Douglas that kind of showcased the Kimberley in the 70s, back in those early sort of documentaries when Malcolm Douglas, basically put the Kimberleys on the map, so to speak. Not a lot of people knew about the Kimbleys until he started documenting this place. And it was my dad that, taught him and welcomed and shared this country with him. And so I feel a sense of responsibility, like they began that journey because they wanted the world to appreciate the Kimbleys. They wanted the world to see the Kimbleys not as an industrial, location or somewhere to build, it wasn't a place for capitalism to get its control on, you know what I mean? It was just incredible, unique part of the world that had so much to offer that we just don't really appreciate or we don't understand. And I think us in the art sector, us in that creative space, who have that freedom and to express, how we feel and what we think and how we share those stories. I think, like I mentioned, I think we're just basically an embodiment or physical form of these old spirits, these old people that have passed us knowledge about keeping country strong. Because if you look after country, country will look after you. It's the simplest thing, right? The simplest thing to say, but it has such depth. You look after country, it look after you. That is the essence of humanity. And I think humans have just lost touch with that through colonization, through capitalism, whatever kind of regime you're under, whether it's communism or whatever. We just lost that connection to Mother Nature. We just, and I think us mob here in the Kimberleys, we still got it. We wake up every day. We still wait for those seasons to change. We still want to go fishing, still want to go hunting. We still want to live off the land. Like, we live it every day. We have no idea how incredibly important that is. And we've got something to really showcase and offer the rest of the world, which, at this moment, it kind of gets, like you say, it kind of gets turned into a tourist product, or turned into a sort of a product that you got to buy and you got to sort of purchase with money. And everything is sort of based on this monetary value. Whereas we know there's more to that. There's more depth to that. And you got to really, you got to come to the Kimberleys and hang out with the mob who live off the land, who live with the land, to understand that connection, that relationship. And so, I do. I sing songs. I make films. I do public speeches. I do educational programs. I work in science and research. I work with corporate industries. I work with small businesses. Anyone that wants to learn about that connection to country, that's where you'll find me.
Thank you so much. Can I just have you on record saying that you have Black privilege? Yeah. No. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, well, it's that privilege, I think, of, just being a Kimberley Black fella and understanding and, being an artist as well. The privilege of being an artist and a Black fella artist and a Kimberley Black fella artist. There's so much to just be had and experienced if we listen, whether it be from the old people or just specifically from nature as well. And this one's a two-parter, and I was really excited to ask you guys this. Is it our job as artists to be activists? Actually, I'll just leave that one, and then we'll go to the second one. Is it our job as artists to be activists? Eduardo? Yeah, just straight up answer. Like, do you think yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thank you. Darling?
It's a hard one. I've got colleagues that aren't into that, like being labelled anything but what we are as artists or storytellers, or sharing the superpower we have in terms of the craft we make. If that speaks up for country, for old people, for future, for now, for past, then in that sense, it can be our job to drive things in a particular way or give voice to voiceless and things like this. But I'm not sure I'd like to label everyone to be, you all got to be like this or you all got to be doing that. I think that's up to that's up to a process and a relationship with the art you make and the people you make it with.
Yeah, I think, the term activist could be used in any spectrum, right? It just means someone who doesn't agree in some way or form, right? But I don't necessarily see myself as an activist. Like the listener said, I see myself more as a storyteller, but more to the point, a truth teller. So when I speak for country, and country to me is honest, it's the truth. It's something that I can't lie about, I can't make up, because I'm more worried about country punishing me than I am about people, you know what I mean? I believe in that, I believe in that. And so, when we talk about country and we talk about our culture, that's truth telling. That's probably really honest conversation you can have with someone. And for me, yeah, look, it can be interpreted as activism. It can also be interpreted as inspiration. It can be interpreted as a message of hope. You know what I mean? It could be, and it really decides, and it really comes down to individual perception, and I think for me, I always speak from the place of country, my people, and my culture. I always come from that grounded position, and and I have the responsibility to speak from a place of truth in honoring that.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, you said something quite interesting about, activism and how it can just be about disagreeing. I mean, because I personally think that any black fellow person who is cultivating their own joy, whether it be from arts or something else, I personally see that as activism. I feel like every black fellow who is out there thriving and just living their life, like you're being an activist because it's what is activism. Interpreting it, and I think we live in the colony of Australia where there are so many barriers, and so if you're actively going and doing and being, I'm like, that's activism. Yeah. Well, thank you. So my next question is, it's about interpretation.
That's the beauty of art. We can make
the beauty of art. Exactly. How can and do we use activism in our art practices?
I mean, I guess if we're going down the route of is if the work that you're doing, if it's a form of activism and it's what's occurring, what's happening, really it's. I feel like everyone up here has already said quite a bit on what that could mean and what that actually is, whether it is storytelling, truth telling, or if it's grounding these larger than life occurrences and just bringing them down to everybody's level to understand, so that they can then interpret it and understand it their own way, and then through being receiving of that message, act accordingly based on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of lots of things that have just been said in terms of, it's connected to process and what you're activating and for who, and thinking about your audiences or your passion for the reasons why you're making or doing that story. But I think responsibility is a big part of it too. And, when you're thinking individually and if you want your voice to be heard in a particular way to drive one particular thing, then that's not generally where I might want to go. I might want to combine and bring together voices that are heading to say something more specifically to a particular mob or reflect a certain truth and a certain lived experience or a privileged insight, like we've been talking about this particular region and what it has to offer the rest of the world, because it really does have that magic and the people within it that can bring minds together to activate certain ways and perspectives of looking at the world or looking at an issue, whether it is incarceration or our terrible social issues that come out of colonisation that are just a continuation of the colonisation that went on and goes on, but with strength, with resilience, with the absolute best of what we can offer it. So if that's activism or being an activist, I guess making all that come together is part of what we try to do, Marageku, as in non-Indigenous people working with Indigenous people, not as separate entities, but bringing each other's understanding and relationship, making meaningful relationships so you can speak together about something. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think like you mentioned, there's varying degrees of activism. Like, there's that subtle activism where you're just being you and you're just believing in your own values and your own principles and you're sticking to it as well. You're committed to it. There's this depth of conviction, then your passion, around what you feel is important. And you just practice that every day in your everyday life. You take that mindset in everything that you do. So that's you being an activist without even acknowledging it or announcing it or or celebrating it. It's just being that person that you believe, that change that you believe in. But then, yeah, there are opportunities. There will be opportunities for us to participate in events and in actions that are in our community, that are in our state, that are around the planet. So there will be opportunities for us to participate and in some form of activism with our stories and our sort of concerns as well. I think, but we're coming into this whole new world with AI and social media. So, when it comes to freedom of expression, everyone's got the right now. Pretty much anyone and everyone has the capacity to express their opinions and to basically have their message out into the world. Depending on how good you are with, those sort of technical resources, you can do a lot. And so, there's a lot of activism on social media. There's so much, and a lot of young people. So there's different technology involved now in standing up and fighting for what you feel is important. And I think we're just going to see more of it, just more stories and more content around people, wanting to share their stories, their insights, what's going on in their own backyard, Before we used to watch news to see what was happening on in the East Coast. Now we can just follow that person on Facebook and see what he does every day. You know what I mean? Like the connection we have with one another around the planet now is incredible. And so the potential we have to create powerful groundswell and support around some of our actions in regards to addressing climate change, yeah, is incredible now. It's massive. It's we have and like I mentioned to you, I'll be like, I knew you from social media. Like I've followed all your reels, I follow all the great work that you do, and and that's the power of it all. That's the power of people from different places being able to connect and share common values. And I think yeah, what we're doing right now is just meeting up and just networking and building relationships. And I think that's the key to it all, like just building that momentum, building more networks, creating more awareness around climate change, getting kids and young people involved, listening to them actually, because I think they're the ones that actually should be, directing, creating the direction in which we should, and we should just sit back and just ask kids, what do you guys want? What do you guys want? Not actually what's best for you or whatever, just actually ask them what you guys want, because this is going to be yours in 20, 30 years time. What do you want? What should we be doing right now for you, mob? Not what we think is good for you, mob, but what do you guys think is good for us, and start really bringing out the most important thing into the context of the conversation, which is our future.
Thank you so much. I think you just saying that, like, ask the kids what they want, and social media. I was walking down the street yesterday in Derby, and then the kids saw me. I felt like a wiggle, because like they all know me from TikTok. The kids want to hear language you've learned. So if you're a black fellow who talks language, that's all they were saying to me. Like, say something in your language. I was like, what do you want me to say? Like, but all of the kids, like, they want language and they want culture and they want all of that. And as we know, as black fellow people, language comes from the land, and that's why it's so important. It's a clear reflection of who we are, and because it sounds like the land as well. And yeah, you were saying with networking, and here we're networking, but I also think we're informing each other, because everyone here thinks so creatively that when we can express that and share that, then, now I have your perspective, and I'm like, wow, I can share that with someone else now. That's a new understanding and a different understanding. So thank you so much. And yeah, how effective can the arts be in the education and informing of the public about an issue? Discuss.
Well, I mean, like it's been said, but when you are trying to engage with these wider audiences, whether it is kids or older people, community members, you're reaching out and you're creating these stories that they can interpret and they can understand, and then they can link back to their own communities. So you'll create these performances or do these art pieces that you're trying to convey your message. And if it is about climate change, and it's not just these end of the world imageries, it's not these images of the glaciers going away. It's simple stuff, or it's just simply about an image of a bird that's landing and it can't find any food. It's just of a tree that is a commonplace tree in your community that really they're not around anymore as much as they used to be, and it's allowing those community members and those people of those areas to be able to really interpret it their own way, and then they could also find their own way to spread their own version of the story that connects to climate change.
It brings me back to doing Cut the Sky in Mowanjum up the road here many years ago, and getting feedback from people like Mimju and Oscar, who was in the audience, and her grandson, who was so concerned with watching this, dancer move like he had a kangaroo hood on, and he's walking through the smoke that's coming from this fracking machine, and the light is shining through the smoke and the fog, and this kangaroo, goes down, and he's looking for water, and he's looking around, and he keeps moving, and the sound is building and building and building, and then there's this like epicness to the end of that scene, and that little boy that was the biggest impact for him. And then June spoke about other things like the music and the lyrics of the songs, and she inspired them, like speaking about how young people don't go to meetings anymore, thinking about who's going to be there to sing these special songs that are going to do those things that have a function in our cultures for the future. Those things, get reflected back and again have some kind of manifestation in theatrical. That's the beauty of the theatre. You can create these worlds that people can space jump into the future or back into the past. The fight at Nukunba for country, or back to those protests. And then take them on the journey so that they are impacted by the different propelling here and there and back and forth to think about what it is they want. Like when we do ask young people, what do they want for the future? Do you want to all be like crocodiles with these scales on your back that Edwin Mulligan speaks about in the piece? Or, so it makes me think about performances like Cut the Sky. It's not just about the end product. It's about the whole process to make that work, to work with the people, the amazing collaborators and co-devising artists that give an essence of themselves into a work that then becomes a bigger reflection of all of our futures or all of our past or presents. Thank you.
Yeah, look, for me, I think I draw back to my earliest years. I must have been about 4 years old in one point, and it was kind of like it was religious, to use that expression. But every Wednesday, all the family groups. Now, there's a lot of family groups in one point, and I guess how the zonage was around the community is everyone had their sort of individual family groups. And so all the families would, occupy a certain part of the community. But every Wednesday evenings, we would all collect ourselves under these two big white gum trees, madlal trees, and we'd dance crobbery. And it wasn't even like, it wasn't coordinated. It was just something that people just naturally did. Every Wednesday evenings, all the mothers would be making dampa and tea and all the feed aside and bubble and all kinds of food, and all the fathers would be on this side getting all the paint and getting all the artifacts and all the totems and everything ready and getting all the dance prep gear, all, the bilil, the shades and stuff that they use as their sort of screen walls, and everyone, like about 3 o'clock that afternoon, people just did it naturally. There was like not even someone coordinating on it. People just did it naturally. And all the men would go off this side, all the women would be this side cooking and getting everything. And about 6 o'clock that evening, they'd just lay these massive canvases, huge, big tarps, where everybody sat together. Everybody in the whole entire community would sit together all on that one shared tarp. And they'd all prepare, and all the kids would be sitting down with the mothers and grandmothers and everything, and then all the men would be at the back with all the young boys, all us kids. We were like little kids, but that was our production, that was our theater. You know what I mean? Like, we did that naturally, and then all of a sudden we'd come out, all the kids would come out, Lurin, they sing that sort of, that's our sort of our innocent childhood corroboree we call Lurin, and we'll dance all the little stingrays and the fish and the crab and all the animals, that's all the kids. We'd come out, and then after the kids, the men would come out and do the proper production, the Elma, and when they'd come out and dance the Elma. And so I saw that at a very, very, early stage in my life. I saw it organically, naturally. There was no structure around it, like formal structure. It just happened naturally. People did it so naturally. But then I started to see them old people started to pass away. And just how dramatically things change when you have significant leaders, significant senior people in your community. As soon as they're gone, that sense of direction sometimes gets lost. And unfortunately, in our community, we see it across the whole country. A lot of our old people are just dying, we're just losing them, a lot more sooner than we'd like, because of other, whether it's terminal illness, whether it's some sort of health-related issues. So our expectancy, life expectancy isn't very high. And we're witnessing that because we've lost a lot of knowledge, in a sense, a lot of direction, because a lot of old people have gone. And I think, for me, yeah, that was sort of more around sort of where my inspiration came from. It sort of started there, I guess. Then I was always an expressive kid, humbug. I was always in trouble at school. I had attention disorders. So my report card always said, I had a short span of attention. I had a problem with authority, always, every report card. So, I was just one of these little humbug mob, but one day I got to look at Brand New Day. Brand New Day, and I was really, really privileged to see Brand New Day when it was in Sun Pictures, the theater. And I saw my mob from my community. Oh my God, like, words can't describe the impact watching Brand New Day, like raw, in its full essence, like the energy, I can still feel it now. It's incredible, and the inspiration Brand New Day had to me. I just said, I want to be there. I want to be on a stage. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I just want to know that one day I'm going to be up on a stage and I'm going to speak as passionately and as confidently and express myself with that much conviction that Brand New Day is speaking right now, That's who I want to be. you know, and I discovered that in my own way, in my own, you know, throughout my journey, I've made that dream a reality. But I've always had that vision, you know, that impact that Brand Day, you know, Uncle Bamba and Jimmy Chai and these people, incredible people, and the way that they were able to, I guess, allow us to believe in our dreams, you know, is important. And I think, you know, we not only honor the, you know, our old people that looked after country, but we honor our storytellers, you know, our important storytellers and our important sort of inspirations. And they're very much one, for me, Brand New Day was a big game changer. Honestly, Brand New Day just made me believe that I could be anything.
It's really beautiful. Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you. And for my last question as well, and broad as they all are, but what are you doing in your practice to work more sustainably? Obviously, that could be quite a difficult question to answer as Kimberley people. We're in a remote sector of the world, so it's already harder for us, I feel like, to live sustainably in that way because we all, you know, live under capitalism and everything, but answer how you see fit. Thank you.
I think maybe not in the sense of resource usage, but in regards to the work I've done working in the schools, whether it's with puppet making and puppet performances, or if it's with two-way science and educating students, it's the management of sustainability being teaching these kids about what's needed for the future, whether it's taking care of country, whether it's remembering and learning from the elders about how things were and what they were like in the past, so that you can hold on to that knowledge. And when those things change and the environment keeps changing, and you have to, those kids then have the responsibility of watching and observing country and learning how it's a new way to interpret how country is changing, and being able to pick up how to sustainably hunt and to sustainably take care of themselves for the future. That's the kind of sustainability I see that can come along from our work, where it's just retaining that knowledge, but also adapting it and changing it as it goes along with the current world that's been going on.
Thank you.
Absolutely agree. Working within education as a Yawuru language teacher, it's a huge responsibility to ensure not only to honour my old people that, and I do honour each and every one of them. I feel so grateful for those that have taught me language and culture, and in doing that, carrying that baton, the next step to pass on to those next generation. Best way is to learn about the seasons, learn through the language of the land to ensure that it's kept at the forefront of the importance of looking after it and caring for it. And whether it's through Bugarigara stories of dreaming that have been there forever, telling us the same messages that we need to tune up to as adults, not just as kids. And also committing to continuing to learn from and be the conduit between the generations, because I think that's part of our responsibility. Well, as a Banaga person of my community, that is part of my responsibility to ensure that whatever I learn, I can carry on, and and to listen deeply and carefully to country.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just what's going on right now, like so many of us that work in this industry, but in different ways and in different sectors, you know, whether it's through music, whether it's through theater, whether it's, you know, through other forms of art, with painting and exhibitions and stuff. We know there's more work that needs to be done in the Kimberleys. That's just a simple fact. We just know that there needs to be more recognition, there needs to be more investment from the government, there needs to be more acknowledgement in regards to, you know, supporting, grassroots sort of initiatives. And I think what we need to do now is really become responsible around some of that knowledge and how that knowledge gets retained and kept in the Kimberleys as well, and looked after in the Kimberleys. Marigeko is its own entity, you know what I mean? And so for me, like I've set up my own institute, which is called the Albert Wiggan Institute. And basically that's a platform for young people to build their dreams. It's me acknowledging the networks and the contacts and the people that I've met throughout my journey and the connections that I've made throughout my journey, and now bringing that back home and creating this platform for any young person to say, hey, one day I want to do a TED Talk. Well, come here, I'll show you how to do it. Hey, one day I want to make a film with National Geographic. Come through here. We can do that through this institute. And be keeping it ground-based, like keeping our, local initiatives. And it's got to come from the mob, from the ground too. Like we've got to be really clever now about how we're going to look after all of this stuff, retain all that knowledge and wealth for ourselves, and put it back into our community and into our country, And I think we got to think broadly. We got to become really, really sort of innovative and think outside the square in regards to how the connections that we are making are coming back to our community and allowing the next generation to succeed, or to at least create pathways to opportunities. And I think today, like this arts forum is a really good recognition of us coming together and collaborating. People that work on a macro and a micro level, all of us that are in the same sector, working in different ways, but we're coming together and we're building this momentum where we then, put pressure back on the government, back on the culture and arts, and we start, putting pressure back on, significant investors that are in our region, and we start targeting, resources into these type of initiatives, into, for me personally, in regards to, I'd love to see a cultural dance academy where we can recruit 100 young boys from every community and bring them into a academy where we teach them traditional dance. And their dance, they showcase their dance. So if you're from Fitzroy, we're gonna take 100 kids from there, and we're gonna, and then we're gonna get 100 from Monapoint, and we're gonna teach them Milma, and then we're gonna teach this mob who dance Wonga and all this mob. And then once we teach them that dance, guess where we're gonna showcase it? At the Dreamtime Festival, in front of 60,000 people right in the middle of Optus Stadium. We've got a big studio, we've got a big dance academy. Like we can showcase who we are and how incredible we are, and the talents all around us. But we need institutions. We need that support from, from government. We need these types of, companies that are working in that sector to really make that vision come a reality, But that's sort of my big vision. I really do. I want to be able to teach about 200 young men how to be painted up, perform their dance, and then showcase that in front of the world, on a world stage. Dallas has been doing it for a long time. And we just need to, learn from, people like her in regards to, how do we create those opportunities? We got our own resources in our own yard. We got all the talent we need in our own backyard. And we just need to work more together and put pressure on the powers that be around, directing their funding and resources into more grassroots initiatives.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. I think that's all of our questions, but did anyone have any questions for this wonderful panel? You guys have been so thorough. Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know, anything that you guys would like to finish off with as well. I know that a lot of it is to advocate and to continue to advocate as well. And I think, with you saying we'd love to have all these dances in Optus Stadium for everyone to see, but I think it's something within this colony of Australia, and they have always loved, in a way, I think, propping up our art and using our art in that, and our culture in that way. But there is this separation in this Kariawe of art and life, whereas we know as Blackfellas it is the same thing. So it's that double layer of, if you are going to honor our art, you have to honor that everything that it stands for. It's never just a piece. It's never just something. Like, everything has much deeper meaning, and it is also interconnected. So I feel like that's that other part that the rest of the country needs to catch up with as well. Because always love blackfella art. It's beautiful in each of its forms, everything that we do. But it has to be about everything. Because we live in the web of life, not in a hierarchy.